Arrakis is so beautiful when the sun is low. Rolling over the sands, you can see spice in the air. The outsiders ravage our lands in front of our eyes. Their cruelty to my people is all I've known. What's to become of our world?
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
Good morning.
This week, we'll be discussing the new classic, 2021's Dune, starring Timothée Chalamet, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, not James Brolin, and Aquaman. What is his name?
Jason Momoa.
Jason Momoa.
You knew I'd know the answer to that. I can't think of anyone else's name, but Jason Momoa.
And he's great in this. I think Jason Momoa is dynamite. Very charming.
Charming, good looking. Why not?
Why not? You can't beat that. I mean, it's a tough cross for us to carry, but somehow we do okay. Good times.
What if you teamed him up with The Rock? Because they're both like good looking. They're both super athletic. They're all bodies and everything, and they both seem like they could be cool.
And Polynesian.
And Polynesian. And
there you go.
Maybe they've all done Lisa Bonet too. I don't know.
Ah, Lisa, if you're listening, no offense.
She does have good taste in men.
Now, we both actually went to the theater. Is that correct? Or did you watch it on HBO Max?
I watch it on HBO Max for free.
The way Jesus intended it to be watched.
And it was perfectly fine with me watching it there.
Okay, well, I went to the theater. I said, I want to see gigantic sandworms all over the screen. That's what I'm looking for. So good times. Now, go ahead.
Here's an amusing story, because, of course, I never read Dune and never saw the original. So I'm thinking Tim Burton and Beetlejuice may have been inspired by the sandworms of Dune.
And what about the sandworms in Tremors?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure if I saw that. Did I see that?
We reviewed it on the show, so I hope you did.
I already blacked it from my mind.
Sweet Jesus. Give us your...
How come Kevin Bacon wasn't writing the sandworms and Tremors? Or did he do that? And now he's Atreyu, and I missed all that.
Okay, Atreyu is a character from Neverending Story. There's a character named Paul Atreides in... Oh, sweet Jesus.
Close enough.
We're going off the rails already. Now, you were texting me, I'm assuming, while you were watching, literally B-O-R... I-N-G. Yeah, good times.
Well, actually, I think autocorrect changed some of the letters, so I'm not really sure what the final word actually read as.
It was like the Zodiac code or something. I don't know what was happening.
How come my iPhone tell me, like, the letter E is incorrect and change it to a different letter?
That's upsetting.
Bastard.
And I've said this before. It's like, how many times you've been trying to send a text message and you're just hitting the wrong buttons? It's like, why can't we not have a iPhone for full-figured hands? You know what I'm saying? Very upsetting. Give us your 30-second synopsis of Dune.
Well, let me just, before I do that,
Please.
I just want to say, I went to an estate sale Thursday, and as I was flipping through the Lawrence Welk records, looking for, like, the grandchildren's 80s albums, which I did find, I found,
of course,
an unopened Belinda Carlisle.
Which album? Christmas album, you said?
No, not the Christmas album, the one with...
Circles in the Sand?
Circles in the Sand. Unopened.
That's a good one.
I picked you up a Tiffany album and an Amy Grant also. But the steal of the deal was the original Dune soundtrack.
Ooh.
Ryan Eno.
Very nice. Good time. I have to stop. Looking over your shoulder, I see what looks to be Pee Wee Herman sitting on the toilet. Is that correct?
First of all, it is Pee Wee Herman, and that is an original, but my old boyfriend Tom stepped on it, so he doesn't talk anymore.
Oh, no.
And he is sitting on his friend Cherry.
Not to be confused with his friend Toilety, I guess.
There was no toilety friend, although that would have been funny.
It would be hilarious.
There is no porn movie theater action figure either, but
It's not too late.
We all love him now. We all love him now.
Absolutely. We forgive his transgressions and, in fact, encourage him to transgress yet again.
Just spank it at home, people.
Handle your biz. Aaron, give us your 30-second synopsis of Dune, for God's sake.
It is every movie that is out now. It is every Avenger movies. It is Star Wars. It is the Great White Hope, come to save the natives who can't defend themselves. It is spiritual white people bullshit. The end.
It's interesting that you say that, because there is truth to that. The white savior coming down to help the natives.
The natives, yes.
The natives.
And it's every freaking movie that guys like. It's a Messiah. It's a rebellion. There is an emperor. I mean, there's more. I immediately had to watch the first movie because I never saw it.
Oh, you did watch it?
I did watch it. And I'm like, there are parts of the original that I like better, but it's the same story.
Well, why wouldn't it be? It's a remake.
I mean, I don't know why one is so much better than the other, except for the pus. And they changed. I mean, I did read this one review about the gay baron with the legions, that it was supposed to represent the gay hysteria of the 80s with the AIDS epidemic and all this. They made the one gay guy like a psychopath. And so in the new one, they just made him Marlon Brando from Apocalypse Now.
I think it's Marlon Brando from the Island of Dr. Moreau, if you ask me.
It's all of it's fat Marlon Brando. I bet there is a total scene where he's rubbing his bald head. I'm like, this is a Apocalypse Now. Frankly, I like the sets in the David Lynch better. They seemed like richer. I like the green walls. It reminded me of going to the Emerald City or something, but I can't say the costumes are better. People are maybe better looking in this one. Someone please tell me why one is better than the other. I mean, if you remove pus, why is one better than the other? That's a big
thing. I mean, I don't think we can overstate that in the original David Lynch classic, there's a lot of Baron Harkonnen being just pussy and boily, which it's a little too off-putting.
I did like him floating around, and they carried that over into the other one. But I'm like, so what? The one fat guy is evil. So now, I mean, what does that mean? Marlon Brando's evil? Actually, I just saw this documentary on Rita Moreno, and maybe Marlon Brando was evil. I don't know.
Oh, what did Rita Moreno have to say? Since we're going off on this,
she was obsessed with him for like 7 years. She had an abortion by him. She's like,
sweet Jesus.
She tried to kill herself to be free of him. So her comment to start off the story was, have you ever been so obsessed with someone that you couldn't breathe? She's like, that's how Marlon felt about himself. Bop, 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 bop.
Drop the hammer.
No, but he was the ungettable. Everybody wanted him, but she had him. But it was an abusive relationship, just
I could
psychologically.
See that.
Yeah,
I could see that.
But it was interesting. But I mean, and maybe maybe you read the book, and maybe if I hadn't seen 10,000 other movies that follow a similar style, and I mean, and frankly, it just looks like every epic for this generation movie when I'm watching the original. I mean, when I'm watching the new one, it's just like a lot of scenery, not a lot of the original one had a monologue at the beginning that basically told you stuff that the big movie, the new one, doesn't tell you.
Right.
So that helped a little bit. That explains some gaps. But I mean, why is House Atreyu any better?
Not House Atreyu.
It was like freaking Game of Thrones, where everybody thinks their shit don't stink, but they're still oppressing people.
Well, go ahead.
I mean, in the end, these are lords and serfs, you know?
Well, to be clear, you hated both versions of the film. Is that correct?
I mean, it was just so predictable. I would hate is strong. And less emotion. It's like I'm ambivalent because it's a story that's been told 1,000 times, and maybe they told it first in the book. But guess what? By now, it's like when we were on the podcast and we were talking about how Jaws was so scary, and they're like, for people our age, it's just goofy and stupid. So I think that's where I am at this point, hearing the stories 10,000 times.
Right.
It's boring and predictable.
I mean, I guess I can kind of see that because, like, the book was written, I believe, in the 60s.
Right.
The book was written in the 60s. I did read the book not that long ago, within the last 10 years, for the first time. And it's interesting, it's entertaining, but you can see the seeds that it plants kind of blooming in these later science fiction kind of epics.
Right.
One thing that I think is kind of interesting to note is this movie's considered kind of soft science fiction, which is to say that most of it deals with kind of the ecology of Arrakis rather than laser guns and robots and things like that.
Like Game of Thrones is fantasy light because it really deals more with the interplay. I mean, the dragons don't show up until more than halfway through the season.
Right. Well, yes. Game of Thrones tricked people who are not big fantasy people into liking it because it was basically like the Tudors. It was palace intrigue for like 2.5 seasons or something.
It was like historical fiction. So it hooked you in. There was like, because our dad was not going to, he's like, dragons, I'm not going to watch it. You had to buy him the first series to sit down and it hooks you.
You're right. Exactly. You have to trick people.
This was no Game of Thrones.
Well,
by the costumes.
So obviously we had all heard of the original movie. Correct?
Yeah, which is fascinating because why I never saw it. Yeah, I just never did. And I see every David Lynch movie and I never saw this. And
but you're a Lynchophile.
And I'm a Lynchophile. I listen to his daily weather reports. I consider subscribing to David Lynch coffee, but I did not do it.
Did not do it.
And I did read a little backstory. Do you know he had been offered Return of the Jedi and took this over it?
I'm not sure I did know that. That's interesting. Yeah. I know he disavowed this movie. He said it is painful for him to think back on it because he feels like the studio took it away from him. Right. And he wasn't able to give his vision.
And he was not allowed the final cut.
Right. And it was a flop. It was not a successful film because it is a lot of kind of slow-moving Lawrence of Arabia stuff going on, where it's just people walking through the desert.
Right. I argue that the new one, because now they've added more, now they've split it into 2 giant movies, has even more sifting sands.
Right. Well, it's, I mean, people who like the original Dune novel consider it like a full-blown classic of American literature.
Right.
And they feel, I guess the idea is that the original David Lynch movie, in addition to Boyle's, is that it was too compressed. So they were just cramming as much as they could into just this one movie that was like, however long it was, 2 hours or whatever. So
they do say the word is dense.
It is, you know what? It's dense, but I sat down when I started reading it, I just read it. You know what I mean? I wasn't like putting it down and doing something else. If you sit down, if you're in the mood for kind of, as they say, soft science fiction, because the Fremen on planet Arrakis they're all humans. They're humans. Like the Atreides, the Harkonnens, the Fremen, the Emperor.
They're all humanoids. They're all human. All through the universe.
Well, they're human. They're not just humanoids. They're allegedly, people who know more than me have said that in this universe, this takes place 10,000 years or whatever in the future.
Oh my God. You realize this is Jeff Bezos' plan.
This is his plan.
This is his plan. Realize. Call
Right.
Q.
That's a call Q, exactly. But like they're all descendants of people from Earth.
All right.
That's the idea, which is why, I mean, you do see, I mean, the sandworms, I guess, are an alien life form or whatever.
Well, maybe not to that planet.
But they're native to that planet, obviously.
They wouldn't be alien there.
Exactly. What I'm saying is that they're all, you don't see, like the humans are humans, no matter what planet they live on. You know what I mean?
They just had to adapt over the centuries.
Right.
Strange and weird.
Right. And again, people who know more than me is that the reason why spice is so important is because they don't use computers on their spaceships for interstellar travel. Instead, it's like the people, they actually have navigators who have to use the spice to kind of expand their mind to such a degree that now they can navigate interstellar travel, something along those lines.
It's like they bend time or something.
Something like that. Something. It's
they
dense.
look like in the original one. There's like vaginal.
Oh no! Here we go.
Brainiac slugs.
Here we go. Good times. There's no. I don't know what that means, but okay.
They have this. That was the last time you watched it. They have this weird little mouth, and it's just so Lynchian and disturbing.
That might be his own little flourish. I don't know.
And then there's always, in the original one, they have like their ears. People have ears sewn up. There's always an ear thing in a David Lynch. Usually it's wrapped in some fabric found on the grass, but I didn't see any grass in any of the worlds.
Well, you know it's Lynch because Kyle MacLachlan is the star.
I love Kyle MacLachlan.
That's how you know it's Lynch.
And it may be Sting's greatest performance ever. He is like Puck.
Well, I defy you to talk about any other performance of Sting.
Well, no, because he was in Quadrophenia.
You talking about the album? The videos for the album?
He was in the movie. He was the Vespa, had the silver Vespa with all the thousands of like mirrors and stuff.
Sweet.
He was the one that the mods all idolized, and then it turns out he was like a bellhop. They thought he was such a rebel, but he was a poser.
Oh, poor Sting.
Yeah. Except in that one, he has white spiked hair versus red spiked hair in this one.
You're saying he was pulling a Billy Idol in Quadrophenia. Interesting.
I'm never a Billy Idol fan.
Shut your eyes without a face.
Got no human race.
C'est un visage.
That is only amusing because we reviewed the French film.
That is correct. Okay. Shall we jump right? We're bouncing all over the GD place. Shall we start talking about this film?
I'm just waiting for this. Okay, first of all, the lead. Okay, we'll just discuss this film now.
Please.
We don't need to discuss the Lynch one anymore. But the lead dude, what's his name? Chalamet?
Timothy Chalamet.
So I just saw him in French Dispatch, and he's equally as thin as a razor blade. He is so thin.
Yes.
That if this was a woman, they would be like trying to. Every National Enquirer would say she's anorexic.
No question. He's emaciated. I literally wrote that down. Skinny Chalamet is what I wrote.
Like I said, he was in the Wes Anderson French Dispatch and Naked as a Jaybird and that, and he's almost as thin.
Now go ahead.
That's it.
He's a good actor, but as a theater student myself back in the day, he always this is through no fault of his own. He reminds me of those pretty boy theater guys with the sensitive hair that used to piss me off. You know what I'm saying?
Those were the guys that the girls wanted to get with.
Yes.
But the guys were not interested in girls.
That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct. So,
I went to high school with some of those. They all auditioned for Juilliard, and they're all pumping gas the next year.
Now, because I'm not looking this up, but I believe he is in his 20s, but because of his weight and his youthful, he could be 13 for all I know, for goodness sake.
He's playing 17 in French Dispatch and is what's her name's lover from Fargo. Frances McDormand.
That's an interesting combination.
Luckily for us, we don't even see them kissing. We just see them in bed talking to each other at one point.
It's a Wes Anderson special.
It's a Wes, and I will tell you, that movie's 1,000 times better than Dune.
I mean, I have to say, I saw this on the big screen, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I figured you would.
Now, we've talked about this before. It's a slow burn. It's that Denis Villeneuve kind of milieu, if you will. I'm going to throw in as many French words as I can think of, where you just kind of
Ennui.
It's the ennui, where you're kind of like enveloped by what's going on.
Over you.
Yes,
you're immersed.
Yes. Now, I have to say, it's like oftentimes those kind of films bore the crap out of me. Where it is that kind of Terrence Malick Tree of Life, where you're just sitting there for 2.5 hours going, what in the hell is happening? Because it's a lot of sweeping landscape of the desert, One point,
like 3/4 of our budget went for that, so you're going to just sit there and watch this goddamn business.
Absolutely you are. Good Lord. I wrote down bagpipes in the future. I appreciate that's one instrument that did not go out of style 10,000 years in the future.
I was trying to figure out, one minute they're pretending to be like they're from Spain, and then they're whipping out bagpipes. Is there some cross-pollination that we're not discussing? Because they're in the day. Okay, I didn't say I was going to do it. In the David Lynch.
Yes.
It wasn't strange costumes, but it was period costumes.
Right.
This one, I'm not sure what the hell they're trying to read. Brolin looks like he's a Civil War general. Am I right?
Yeah.
And then
you Stonewall Jackson in this one.
Then they have House. I'm just going to call
Atreides.
House Atreides. House Atreides are dressed like, if you ever watched the Borgias, so they were dressed in the black, like Spanish outfits, and then they're whipping out bagpipes. I'm like, what?
Yes. It's very important. Again, I think in the original books, they were descended from people from Greece, because Atreides is actually a Greek name. There you go.
Okay, so then I
10,000
see the
years
connection.
ago.
That's what I see, the connection of the bagpipes. Now that you say they're
Greek. The traditional Greek bagpipes. You know them, don't you? No, we don't. I appreciate that when the Atreides family, because we have to say, okay, so there's one planet in the universe that the spice can be found on. This is like the most valuable substance in the universe. It's called Arrakis, which is this desert planet that has giant sandworms that are like as big as like an aircraft carrier or something. They're freaking huge.
Right.
And there's a native population called the Fremen that live there, which, I mean, they're essentially like Bedouins of what we have today, Correct. A nomadic society.
But instead of tents, they're living kind of underground is what they're doing. There's tunnels all through.
So the original people who controlled Arrakis were the Harkonnen family, I guess, who in the original movie were the Boily people. But basically, it's that thing where it's like, oh, irredeemable, just evil characters, like an entire, like, this is the Empire, this is Darth Vader, this is the Emperor. That's the kind of thing.
Right.
For some reason, that's not entirely explained. The Emperor of the known universe tells the Harkonnens to hit the road, and they insist that the kindly Atreides family take over Arrakis.
I know the answer to this.
Lay it on me. What's going on?
So, the Atreides family has a lot of support in the known universe, and he's the Emperor is afraid of their popularity. They're gaining power. Plus, they're working on this new kind of weaponry. So to not show favoritism, he does something just to cause a problem. So they take it away from the people who are now richer than anyone. And as a reward for the Atreides family, they get to take over the spice people. knowing that the Harkonnens or whatever are going to be in a rage and are going to attack him. That it's not the Emperor's fault that they've eliminated this entire household planet of people.
Right. I mean, that part made sense. Like, it's
Okay.
meant to spur a conflict between the Harkonnens and the Atreides.
Right.
Because, like you said, the House Atreides is the popularity's they're getting too big for their britches,
Right.
basically, essentially. Now, literally a week later, they've been on Arrakis. Now, Harkonnen, full-blown invasion with the Emperor sending all his men anyway. It was like, what? It's like, that kind of defeats the whole kind of subterfuge if the Emperor is also like, well, I'll send my troops as well. Cool,
Right.
we'll help out.
All I thought the whole time was, why before anything is even set up, would you everybody just move there and roll the dice? Why wouldn't there be a force that goes in ahead of time, making sure making sure everything is as it should be before you bring your concubine and your children?
Farewell, my concubine.
Yeah.
I think the issue,
With your paramour.
right? Well, and that's the thing. Basically, Duke Leto Atreides, he knows that this is all a trap.
Right.
He knows, but he can't refuse it. Like,
Right.
to refuse it would be like open warfare with the Emperor, essentially. Correct. Now, they do, basically, when the Harkonnen were on the planet Arrakis, they were at constant war with the Fremen, bombing them, trying to chase them, hunt them down, blah, blah, blah. Duke Leto is like, when we go, we're going to, actually treat the Fremen nicely and try to respect their boundaries and kind of whatever.
While we strip everything from their planet that is sacred to them.
And that's, interestingly enough, when they're finally there, because they sent Aquaman, ironically, to the desert planet by himself, or with his gang. I mean, who the hell knows? Right. To meet with the Fremen. And he kind of learns their ways a little bit and kind of understands them, so that when the Atreyu, run! When the Atreyu family arrives, they have a meeting with the leader of the Fremen. And I was like, they'll never be able to agree, because you think the Fremen would be like, you can't take the spice. This is our sacred thing. But he doesn't say that. He's like, hey, take your spice. Just leave us alone. And Leto's like, okay. Cool. High five. We're good.
Well, and honestly, if you were the Fremen, what else would you say? No, we're going to fight you to the death. I mean, that would be the perfect thing. And then you start your acts of terrorism.
So, but then it comes back to, then why were the Harkonnen fighting and hunting down the Fremen if the Fremen were just like, just leave us alone, you can take whatever you want? Just because they're evil?
Just because they required... It was not... Remember when they first landed... Every time they landed or came, like the ruling members, it was forced attendance. You had to come out. It's like when the Queen would go to India. Everybody had to stand there and wave.
Right.
Versus absolute obedience, and you're going to do what we say. But yeah, you're right. It makes no sense. But honestly, that's a perfect Fremen thing. You could say, that's fine. Do as you please, while they keep their eyes on you and move on to the next attack. Because you don't want to start off going, you motherfucker, it's on. I'm gonna drink the blood of your children. No, be like, yeah, true. We're cool. We're cool, man.
That's possible. So you're suggesting the Fremen were not being altogether truthful in his ways. Interesting. I mean, could be.
It could be. I mean, it could be they felt that way, but as long as this goes one way or another. But basically, we're the friendly colonizers, right? Isn't that right? When we
question.
When we kicked the Spanish out of what, Guam and Cuba and everything, then we were the good colonizers, right?
I mean, this is true. This is true.
Are they America?
They could be. Absolutely. So then we also meet the Duke's, like you said, his concubine, his paramour, whatever she is.
Yeah. Not wife.
Not his wife, but she's not like kept in the back room like Ming the Merciless or whatever.
Exactly.
She was still like had a place of honor in the household. And was the mother of Paul Atreides, basically. Now, she is a member of some religious order that has like crazy psychic powers. Is that what it is?
It was. And didn't it sound super Catholic when you said it all together? It was like Sister Mary something or other.
I don't know if it was Sister Mary Margaret.
When you slur it together, it totally sounds like it would be some kind of Catholic order.
Interesting. When you slur it together after some liturgical wine, what are you talking about? Sweet Jesus.
I'm looking it up, you bastard.
So, but they have the powers to like compel people to do things using the voice. And Paul, as the child of this woman, has similar powers as well. Like you can compel people to do things that they wouldn't normally do. Now, this religious order, like, is hoping to, through interbreeding,
the Bene Gesserit. It sounds like the
Gesserit,
like the good Jesuits is what it sounds like in Latin.
That's what it means.
Yes,
from the original Latin. Well, if you look, all of these things have their basis in Earth languages. Like a lot of it is Arabic. A lot of it is Arabic.
Well, because you're on a desert planet, right? So it makes sense. I mean, same with Game of Thrones, right?
Well, okay, I have to talk about this. It was hard to understand a lot of what was being said. Like there was a lot of Lady Elizabeth, the concubine, or what, I don't remember what her name is. She's like mumbling to herself with the camera like on her. Oh, I'm the fear of the fair of the fire. You're like,
know what? I had that problem too. I didn't know what the she was saying. I rewound it and I was still like, what?
But you could turn on the subtitles. I'm in a theater just going, crossing my fingers and hoping for the best. Dude, you know what I mean?
I'm getting older, but I'm not subtitle older.
Oh, I'm subtitle older. Ain't no lie. There was a lot of that. And there was a lot of references to Paul being this legendary Messiah, but they had like an Arabic word that they kind of slurred through that I have no hope of ever repeating. So good luck. A lot of those are kind of Arabic titles that they said under their breath.
At one point, they were calling for a jihad.
Yes. Well, I think jihad has a different term or a different meaning in this scenario, but I'm not. It's hopeless. It's hopeless.
They talk about the Butlerian jihad, a conflict fought against an oppressive AI
maybe so.
that took place in blah, blah, blah.
Good times.
How dare you?
No, I wrote down a lot of indecipherable words, ?
I haven't even looked at my notes yet. Let's see here. Because I didn't take notes for the second one because I didn't want to focus all on that.
Now, there may be people listening to this podcast going like, hey, I'm a Dune scholar and you jackasses are messing everything up.
Well, then I would call in if I were you.
The hotline is open. Call in anytime, day or night.
All right, we start off, and it's the dude from that show that I like, that one superhero show with the raccoon.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yes, they have the Russian dude from Guardian of the Galaxy is one of the Harkoonnens or something.
Oh, yes. Dave Bautista, who played Drax, the Destroyer in Guardians of the Galaxy, is one of the Harkonnen.
And the Harkonnens all look like a combination of Daft Punk or Kaz, depending on their rank.
Oh, there's no question. Yeah. The space suits that the Harkonnen wear, and also the elite troops of the Emperor all have Daft Punk helmets for some bizarreness. Who's to say why?
If the spice isn't a hallucinogen, why isn't everybody just tripping balls from the minute they walk out into that dust storm?
Nonstop. Because it's everywhere. It is literally, it's in the sand. So a dust storm picks up, you think it would just be like ayahuasca or something.
You'd be like, people climbing and falling off cliffs because they think they can fly. And then my final note was, why are the sandworms eating people? They're so large. It would be like a blue whale trying to catch a single krill.
Yes, this is an issue I had with that movie, The Meg, as well, because it's a giant prehistoric shark chasing lone swimmers.
Yeah.
Really?
You're expending 1 billion times more energy than any nutrients. But it could be like that movie, The Quiet Place, where you're just pissing them off with your irritating patterns.
Yes. Basically, I had to say, there's a scene where Paul Atreides, Chalamet, is teaching his mom how to walk like the Fremen in the sand so as not to attract the sandworms. And I almost fell out of my chair because it was this crazy, like, doing, I don't know what it was, some kind of doing the hustle. I'm not sure what the move was because you couldn't walk in a rhythmic way. Because if you walk in just a normal rhythm, that will attract the sandworms.
But the fallacy there is it's just a different rhythm they're walking in. So that made no sense. It was still a pattern.
But I guess it's not a repeating pattern like that. Like it's kind of, it's a 4-3 pattern.
Like it has to be if it's a long sequence before it repeats, then you're fine. The worm goes back to sleep.
Yeah, it's basically.
So unless you're walking bum 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 bum, then you're cool.
Well, it's like when the lady, Dr. Kane, I don't remember what it was. When she's about to be killed by the Imperial troops, she just starts hitting the sand like this.
Right.
For our viewers that don't exist. Then boom, 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 and then the sandworm instantly comes up and swallows everybody. So I think it is. I don't think it's like, ooh, I'm hungry, hungry hippos. I think it's just you are walking in the sand and you're annoying me, therefore you will be devoured for no reason.
Like a quiet place. They're not really eating you in a quiet place. You're just annoying.
That is correct. Now here's another question for you. The spaceships all fire lasers or rockets or something, right? Mm-hmm. But on the planet, everything is sword fighting. Why?
Because it was so popular in Star Wars, which was released, 6 years before?
Well, again, the book came out 10 years before, at least.
I don't know.
So is it now... Maybe I remember the kernel of something because they all wear these force field things.
Right.
So is it as simple as because everybody has force field technology that laser guns are not as useful?
But what doesn't make sense is that, okay, so if I'm swinging fast, it won't go through the force field. But if I just stand there and slowly push the knife, it'll go through.
Yes.
While you stand there and I put it in your brain.
I think that's what it is. I think because it's like at one point, what's his name? Dr. Yue is shooting like darts, right? Weird flying like mosquito darts.
Yeah.
And they stick into the force field and then slowly kind of move forward. And the Duke's like, oh my God, something's about to sting me. I think I'll do absolutely nothing about it. Might I just wait?
Why don't you just reach around and pull that little... It's like in the Matrix. You see the bullets slowly coming, so they move.
That is correct.
Versus in this, you would just kind of put your head right against it and allow it to slowly burrow through.
That's correct. That is the standard. So that's the big spoiler, is that Dr. Yue, who's like the physician that works for the Atreides family, is betraying them. Because I guess Baron Harkonnen, whatever, Hakuna Matata, he has Dr. Yue's wife in bondage or something, torturing her somewhere. So, but Dr. Yue feels bad about it. So he sticks Duke with like a paralyzer wasp or whatever and gives him a fake tooth that's full of cyanide gas or something.
Right. Like one of those old those 007 things where you crack it and it leaks.
Right. So that he says, when you see the Baron, bite on this tooth and you'll kill the Baron. You'll kill yourself because, sorry, bro, but you'll also take out the Baron. Good times. Dr. Yue does everything the Baron wants him to do. Baron still kills the guy's wife and then kills him just because I'm evil and that's just the evil shit that I do.
Well, and that's more explainable than the original. Well, you're not really sure why Dean Stockwell. His wife is apparently already
Rest
dead.
in peace, Dean Stockwell, by the way. I love Dean Stockwell. Moving on.
He had some kind of bindi he was wearing, and it was less clear. It was more like his wife was already dead, and he betrayed the family as like a false betrayal just to get the Duke over there to kill what's his name? The Baron.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Could be. Who's to say? Who's to say what it's all about? But it's one of those things where it's just like, it costs you nothing, Baron Harkonnen, just to give the guy his wife and send them on his way. But because you're an asshole, you're like, I could just kill them. I could just betray you for no other than meanness.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like every horror movie. Everybody makes a pact with the devil, and the devil always just gives you the finger once you've done his bidding. And yet there's people lining up.
Well,
it's like surviving R. Kelly. While he was on trial, you still had minors slipping their number to him.
Minors?
Yes.
Minors only. Interesting.
Well, I believe that is his taste.
Well, I mean, I guess here's the thing. If you are Baron Harkonnen who controls an entire planet, you can literally do whatever you want. Like, there's no repercussions for totally betraying faith all around you, I guess.
Right.
But if you are kind of...
It's just fun, Kevin.
Right, it's just for fun. But, like, I guess if you're like a mobster or something, and you have a reputation of never holding up your bargains, then people are like, I'm just not going to go along with you, pal. If I know no matter what we shake on, you're just going to stab me in the back like you've done 15 times before me.
I mean, call me crazy. That would be my logic.
Right.
But not everyone is as wise as I.
Right. Now, later, exactly. Let me write that down. Later in my notes, I literally just wrote subtitles and 2 exclamation points because it was hopeless. And keeping in mind, I'm like sitting there with some people I work, like 3 of us who I work with went to see the movie together. And I'm sitting there with my pen that lights up as I'm trying to surreptitiously take notes in the dark so as not to disturb those around me. Why move to Dune and then immediately betray them? I guess what we're saying, like I said earlier, it's like if you know literally 2 days after the Atreides arrive, then you attack, including the Emperor, who knows what the hell's going on?
I'd be going back to my planet. Screw you and screw the screw you screwed in on.
Right. Now, why destroy the city if you need the equipment? So when the Harkonnen come back, presumably to take back Arrakis, they've already leveled it with the huge explosions from the sky. So, doesn't seem to make much sense. I don't know what you do in that scenario.
Agreed. And then we have the big question, what is the spice? I assume that the spice is in fact worm poop.
It could be, right? Why wouldn't it be?
Why wouldn't it be? Because you need the worms to have the spice. So what other? It's a secretion, right?
Could be secretion. That's exactly. It's an excretion.
It's an excretion. What else could it be? And how can you have a planet with no water? I don't care what kind of suits. There has to be something going in for you to sweat it out.
Right. Everybody who lives on the planet, like if you're out in the sun, you have to wear what they call a still suit. It does take all your secretions and your excretions and turn it into like a little thing that you'd like. There's a little straw that comes out and you can like a camel pack.
Like a Dole Whip from Disneyland. That's what it tastes like.
It's exactly like a Dole Whip. I think that's what they were going for. But you're right. At some point, there has to be original fresh water, doesn't there? Or isn't there diminishing returns? I don't know. Maybe not.
What threw me off is we have an ecosystem. It may be inhospitable to most humans, but it works for the worms. But at the very end of the Lynch movie, it's like Total Recall where the weather changes and now it starts raining. Is that going to kill all the worms?
Maybe they drown. That's what happens to real worms, like in a rainstorm. You see them all crawl up onto the sidewalk because they're drowning in the earth.
For tens of thousands of years, there's been no water. You need the worms for this. It's like, I don't know, if I take a penguin and drop him out of a plane in Death Valley, is it going to be okay?
If you drop him out of a plane, I'm going to say no. Not going to be
It's got those wings. Maybe it can glide a little bit.
Those are flippers. By the way, interesting.
He's going to be flipping me off is what he's going to be
He
doing.
may well be. My last note was literally like, rewatch a must. And I think what I'm referring to is, I think to fully appreciate all the, subtleties, let's say, you need to watch it more than once. Would be
I'm
my
sure
guess.
that's what they would like. So basically, since I watched the other one, I know what's going to happen.
Spoiler.
So, this epic is only about a third of the story of the original, I would say.
Right. Well, and that was kind of a trick because they didn't tell anybody. If you go in, it just says Dune. But if you sit down in the theater and watch it, it goes Dune Part 1. Part
Scammers.
1. Scam-a-lam-a-ding. Now, people were pissed off about this.
It's false advertising.
People were enraged. They were jumping up, throwing things. No, they
burned down all the last remaining theaters.
That's right. No, I think the issue was some people felt that the ending was, I don't want to say perhaps abrupt, but also they feel like it doesn't tell a full story.
No.
You know what I mean? It's literally like kind of the exposition of a story.
The first Star Wars was a complete standalone story.
Yes.
I think Kill Bill, while it doesn't tell you the whole story, you're satisfied even at the end, I think. Where this was just like, what? Now I gotta wait a year to find out what's next.
Well, it's almost like they kind of chose, I don't want to say an arbitrary spot to stop, but it kind of felt like that a little bit. Like you thought maybe the ending of the first movie could be Harkonnens have won. They've taken over the city and Paul and his mom have escaped. And that's where it ends.
Uh-huh.
Rather than, because I knew it was only going to be like the first half or whatever. Rather than so it's like, then another half an hour of little kind of vignettes are occurring where you're just like, is this the end? Or is this the end? I guess it's not really the end. Okay, now it's the end. Got it.
Honestly, I just think the time to do this movie would have been, I don't know, 20 years ago. It's just a pattern that's been fed to us and fed to us and fed to us.
Well, I don't think they could have done it 20 years ago because they did it 30 years ago. You know what I mean? It's like they had to, and again, it was a flop. It was a total flop. So they had to wait. It
cost $40 million. It made like 13. What did they say? 13 or something like that. I mean, it's made the money. Eventually, with time, these things always make their money back. But
it may take a million years.
It is definitely not the worst movie. 100% not the worst movie.
No.
I didn't find it overly long, but I had just seen the first one or the new one. So it didn't seem long or boring. It was just not my favorite thing.
But did you prefer it to the recent one?
There are definitely parts of it that I preferred. I would not say that I have a preference one over the other.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, you could edit the two together. I like the sets of the Lynch one better. I like the costumes in the Lynch one better. There's definitely more Lynchian things in the Lynch one, but I mean, as far as the sweeping deserts, it's a draw. I mean, some of the sets for the desert dwellers are very cool and interesting. The little holes in the ceiling to let just enough light through to light up the hallways because, it's so hot. No one can go outside except all the people that are outside.
I really like the ornithopters. I thought those were really cool. Those kind of dragonfly-looking things.
The dragonflies. That was interesting.
That was dynamite.
But I'm just saying that the Lynch one, with the exception of the weird little Lynch baby that bends time, doesn't feel dated. It doesn't feel dated.
Because it's so bizarre. How could it not?
It's bizarre. I like the floating baron. I don't like the boils and the rape, but
well, who does?
But who does? Apparently, men love rape, especially men raping other rape. They love to put it into movies over and over and over again.
And if you can throw a few boils in there, all the better.
I'm immune to the boils after watching Dr. Pimple Popper. While that was going on, I was like, I wonder what she would say.
Pop those bad boys, I imagine.
Pop it like a grape, man.
Shall we talk about behind the scenes, for God's sakes?
Please.
There were a number of collaborators in this who were such big fans of the original source material that they basically turned away from their like other projects to work on this. For example, composer Hans Zimmer, who usually works with Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan asked him to work on him with Tenet, and he turned it down to work on Dune. And the director, Denis Villeneuve, he was originally going to direct the James Bond movie No Time to Die that just came out. He turned it down because he'd always wanted to work on Dune. So there you go. Was it worth it?
Honestly, that sounds like a draw.
Oh, very sad. Let's see. David Lynch has zero interest in the new Dune movie. He says, because it was a heartache for me. It was a failure and I didn't have final cut. I've told this story a billion times. It's not the film I wanted to make. I like certain parts of it very much, but it was a total failure for me.
Yeah. I
Very
mean,
sad.
think of all his jacked up films. Think of Eraserhead. He has disavowed this because of that.
Right. Denis
It's interesting though, but he had just done, I think, The Elephant Man. He was doing mainstream stuff at that time.
Oh yeah. Do you know who produced The Elephant Man?
Is it Matthew McConaughey?
Matthew McConaughey.
Who's now an anti-vaxxer. Yay!
Is he an anti-vaxxer?
He just came out with some bullshit right now.
Jeez, not the horse dewormer.
Yeah.
Elephant Man was produced by Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks was producing a bunch of kind of not comedic things like from the late 70s, like and on.
Who doesn't love Mel Brooks or Max Brooks?
I love Max Brooks as well. I love them all. Good times. Denis Villeneuve, he wanted to wait till he felt he had enough science fiction experience before he tried to tackle Dune. So he directed The Arrival, and he directed Blade Runner 2049 to make sure that he had the science fiction chops that he would need for such an epic story, evidently.
Blade Runner 2049 is just as awesome as 2000. What was it? 2002?
2010?
2010, A Return to Boredom.
Oh, no. Well, here's the thing. You love the original Blade Runner.
I love the original Blade Runner.
I felt that the original Blade Runner, little boring.
Did you watch the director's cut or did you watch the voiceover?
Honestly, I prefer the voiceover cut.
I go against everybody and say I like the voiceover.
I do too.
That's how every noir, which is what they want to do, starts off. So I don't understand this explanation about how they don't like it. Fuck you, Ridley Scott.
Well, that was the thing. It was basically the executives who were demanding they put that in there.
And they were right.
And I think they were right as well. I think you're right. I think it's a much more enjoyable film with the voiceover. But your true cinema artists feel that you don't tell, you show. But the problem is, if you watch the director's cut, it is a slow burn. I love that we use that term.
Yeah. It is. It's driving through the dunes for 20 minutes. It's the first half of the English Patient where you're just like, oh, Jesus. Is something going to happen?
Yes. People love Terrence Malick. I always tell this story. He had this Academy Award nominated movie called Tree of Life. And this is a couple years ago. Becky and I'm like, Becky, we need to start watching all these Best Picture nominees so that when we watch the Oscars, which we always do, we have some frame of reference to have an opinion. Because for years it was like, well, I saw that one movie and the rest of these are news to me. So we said,
there's a reason why I didn't see them.
Well, and that's become a whole other issue where you feel like you're doing homework. Right. Where it's like these films are very artistic, but not particularly entertaining.
Or they're very upsetting. Upsetting
That's
wins
another part
awards.
of it. Yes.
Upsetting wins awards. So that.
So I sat down to watch Tree of Life.
This is a very F-word
It is. That means that it's a lot more work for me. Thank you, Aaron. We're about 6 or 7 F-bombs in. And it's literally like no narration. And it's like the dawn of time. Here's the earth. And I started to like fast forward. I'm like, what is it? No dialogue or anything. I have no idea what's happening. Fast forward 20 minutes in. Still, plants growing. And I'm like, what in the... It was literally like, there's that scene from Adaptation where Nicolas Cage is like hastily trying to figure out how to start his movie. And it's like, okay, so the dawn of time, Charles Darwin came along, and then there were dinosaurs. It was literally like that kind of, but it's a real movie. This is real. Fast forward 30 minutes in, still no dialogue. We just said, F it. We're not watching this one.
I hate Adaptation, by the way.
Adaptation. The first, I want to say, half to 2/3 is frickin' hilarious. It is Nicolas Cage. We're talking about all sorts of crazy stuff. Nicolas Cage playing twin brothers who are It is hilarious. The last part is not nearly as good, and that kind of wounds it anyway. Not here nor there.
They're not twin gynecologists?
If only Nicolas Cage. He should remake Dead Ringers.
Speaking of gynecologists.
Oh, please don't.
Jeremy Irons is going to be House of Gucci opening up Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Can't wait.
He is. And Duke Jared Leto will be in that as well. Anyway, any other behind the scenes that we want to know about? The ocean world of Caladan was shot in Norway, and the desert of Arrakis was filmed in Jordan and Abu Dhabi. So there you go.
All I can say is, oh no, now it jumped out of my head. Never mind.
Okay. Although not mentioned in the movie, the great houses originally came from Earth. Explain that the use of Latin terms such as Bene Gesserit, which means well done. Scandinavian word Landsrad. The Dutch name De Vries, Peter De Vries. Let me see what else. The Atreides family has their roots in Earth's Greece, where the Minoan civilization was strongly associated with the bull creature, the Minotaur.
Right.
Which is why there's a lot of bullfighting stuff.
That's why I kept thinking, one, their costumes look just like the sons in the Borgias. And then all the bull and people fighting bulls.
The Atreides family traces its lineage back to the Greek kin Atreus. So Atreides literally means son of Atreus, not Atreyu.
It's basically Game of Thrones, but in outer space versus just a foreign land.
Right. And there's 10,000 tons of the mythology of Frank Herbert's Dune, which I'm not going to go into now. So good time. Shall we talk about the cast?
I am obsessed with the idea of what would Return of the Jedi have looked like if, in fact, David Lynch had said yes. Instead of, he had never heard of Dune, read the book, and then was desperate to do it. What if he said, screw it, I'm doing Return of the Jedi?
He could. I mean, would there still have been Muppets in the end? That's my only question. If we're still going to have Muppets, then we're good. By the way, Willow on Disney Plus, like Willow the Next Generation or whatever.
Willow the Next Generation.
It's something like that. That's what's called.
No.
Check it out.
I can't get behind that.
Let's talk about the cast. Timothée Chalamet played Paul Atreides. You know him from Call Me By Your Name, Lady Bird.
Oh, that's right. Oh, so much semen.
Little Women. Oh, God, help me. Rebecca Ferguson played Lady Jessica.
He is also out. There's a movie. He's in another movie called Wes Anderson's French Dispatch. He's the star of that. It's coming out right now. It's in theaters now also.
I will not be seeing that.
It's so good.
Rebecca Ferguson played Lady Jessica. You know her from The Greatest Showman, Mission Impossible, a bunch of the Mission Impossible movies lately. Yeah. Dune, obviously. So there you go.
I don't think I've seen any of the Mission Impossibles.
Start with Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, and they are really good. So talk about the 4th or 5th of the series. Good times. Oscar Isaac played Duke Leto Atreides. You know him from Ex Machina, Inside Llewyn Davis. Star
He's in
Wars, he was Poe
everything.
Dameron. Yeah, he's in all sorts of stuff. Jason Momoa played Duncan Idaho, who was dynamite in this movie.
He's in his own private Idaho.
He is so good in this movie.
He's great.
He is great. He's Aquaman, Justice League, The Bad
Khal
Batch.
Drogo.
Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Stellan Skarsgård
Oh,
played,
one of the Skarsgårds.
yes, the father, played Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. You know him from
Oh
Good Will
my
Hunting.
God! Wait a minute.
Yes.
Let's just freeze that.
You didn't
Are you
recognize him?
si-
Yep.
You mean the Marlon Brando is
Yes.
Skarsgård?
That's the Skarsgård. The father Skarsgård. This ain't Bill and this ain't Alexander.
I do love Alexander. What's he doing?
Okay. Stellan, you know him from Good Will Hunting. He was in Amistad, Mamma Mia. He's in those movies. He's also in like the Thor movies. So you can check him out in those things. Josh Brolin played Gurney Halleck. You know him from the Avengers movies, No Country for Old Men.
Doesn't it seem like they totally gave him some kind of good old boy name to go on with that crazy Civil War uniform he was wearing?
The name comes from the book.
I'm telling you, that's what it sounds like. It just sounds perfect.
And he was in the Goonies.
That's
so there
right.
you go. 1,000 years ago, he was in the Goonies. Good
Yep.
times. Javier Bardem played
Oh,
Stilgar, the leader of the Fremen. You know him from...
No, I
Go ahead.
gotta interrupt.
Please.
He was channeling fucking Anthony Quinn from Lawrence of Arabia hard. I looked at it, all his lines. He was talking exactly like Anthony Quinn.
I found it particularly offensive that all of the Fremen were people of color.
Ooh.
Interesting. Javier Bardem, you know him from Skyfall, No Country for Old Men, other things.
Well, since they painted him all brown on top of that, it's like a double offensive.
It was a double offensive. Dave Bautista played Beast Rabban Harkonnen. You know him from Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers. He was in the Blade Runner 2049 as well. Zendaya was in 5 seconds of this movie, mostly in flashbacks. She played Chani. You know her from the Spider-Man movies, The Greatest Showman, some other things. My children used to watch her. She was on this show called Shake It Up on the Disney Channel. I think you can still find her. Charlotte Rampling played Reverend Mother Mohiam. You know Charlotte Rampling from the 70s. She was in, I always think of her, she was in Orca. If you want to watch that movie.
Oh, God, I remember that with Richard Harris.
Richard Harris, up to his old tricks.
Oh, my God. It was so disgusting when she, aborted a killer whale and it flopped on the deck.
That was a rough go of it.
Oh, the 70s.
There were many other things. I'm not going to look up all these people. So good times. Good times. Let's see.
Speaking of Blade Runner, though, Sean Young is in the original.
In the original Dune?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know if I remembered that. Oh, old Sean Young. She was in a bunch of movies I used to like back in the day. She was in No Way Out. She was in Stripes.
She was in everything for 10 years.
And then I think people realized she's nuts. And then that was it. Then she stopped getting cast. Poor Sean Young. Very sad situation.
I'm going to Google if she's in Scientology now.
Google if she's in the Psycho Ward is what you should be Googling. Anyway.
There's a couple people that went that direction.
Let's talk about our ratings. Dune currently has an 82% fresh and a 90% audience score. Let me see if I can tell you who are the top critics, what their thoughts and feelings are on this. By the way, it's 2 hours and 35 minutes of desert fun. So enjoy.
I found a website that just says 25 actors who are crazy in real life.
Is number one Sean Young.
Says Tilda Swinton, Wesley Snipes, Lily Tomlin, Joaquin Phoenix, Kiefer Sutherland, Sean Young, Tom Cruise.
The fact that Sean Young is on the list, despite having not acted in 35 years, that should tell you something.
I don't find anything about her being in Scientology.
I'm not sure.
Just to tell you. Tell you.
That's good. There are many top critics, but none that I am particularly enamored with. I don't really care. Peter Travers Denis Villeneuve's take on Frank Herbert's dauntingly complex novel can sputter and flirt with incoherence, but the director and its actors, led by an all-in Timothée Chalamet, find the pow and the poetry in this cornucopia of visual astonishments. Good Lord. Visual astonishments. I think that's it. What was your rating?
I gave it 3 out of 5 cups of tepid water.
From a still suit? Refined from your bodily excretions?
Flavored by Dole Whip.
Flavored by Dole Whip. I gave it 4 out of 5 greasy Harkonnen bodies sans boils. So that's good.
After a good exfoliation.
After a good exfoliation. I enjoyed this movie. I have no complaints. It's definitely a slow burn, and they're definitely setting the table for future films. But overall, I thought it was enjoyable. Good. Even Chalamet didn't irritate me too much.
Dune versus Predator. Dune versus Alien.
Dune versus just dump the Predator in the desert.
Dune versus Freddy and Jason and the alien.
Interesting. Dune is never said in this movie, by the way. I don't believe. They just call it, because the planet, I think, is colloquially called Dune, but it's really Arrakis. So there you go. Good times had by all. Thank you very much. Go to our page on Twitter at TPodcast, TW Die. Go to our page on Facebook at The Podcast That Wouldn't Die. Aaron, are we on the Insta?
We're on the Insta. We're the podcast that wouldn't die. All one giant word.
Underscores aplenty. So check that out. You can also...
I think the underscores are all in our email.
Are they there as well? I don't think they're on our email.
Try it all. See what happens.
Sweet Jesus.
I don't even remember.
You can email us.
I feel like I should look that up.
You probably should. You can email us at the podcast that wouldn't die at Gmail.
Oh yeah, it's the _podcast _ wouldn't die.
There you go. Good times had by all. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Good Pods, on Podchaser. We're pretty much anywhere the finer podcasts are available. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, and review. 5 stars only, please. Aaron, if somebody wanted to send you a private DM.
Okay, let me clarify that our Instagram has an underscore after every single word, but our email is the podcast that wouldn't die at Gmail.
No underscores.
All one giant word.
That's correct.
Now for me, I am the Cult of Aaron. Join the cult. That's on Insta and the Twitski.
Very good. So private DMs are expected and appreciated.
No!
Do not do it. Sweet Jesus. Okay, next week we're going to be reviewing the suspense thriller Blowout, starring John Travolta, Nancy Allen. John Lithgow popped up in this thing. I almost fell out of my chair. Yeah. Shocking. A Brian De Palma classic back when he considered himself the master of the macabre. So you have that going for you.
Let me tell you why I nominated that. Because there was a podcast dedicated to the Brian De Palma film Bonfire of the Vanities and everything that went wrong. And they just kept talking about how Blowout was the Brian De Palma film. But I'm telling you, because I've already seen our movie, I thought Carrie was so much better.
Well, it's interesting. Blowout is one of those movies that the people who know love it. Right. Well, right. De Palma is always Hitchcockian. That is always what he's going for. So Blowout, definitely, people who know love Blowout. I'd heard of it. I had never seen it. Right. So this is the first time seeing it. It was interesting to see it through those eyes. So where can you watch this? Well, if you have a library card, you can see it on Canopy at no additional charge. Sadly, none of my libraries take advantage of Canopy with a K. So I had to pay $3.99 on Amazon Prime. So that's your other option. So good
I
times.
saw it on Turner Classic Movies on Halloween. It was part of the Halloween marathon.
Well, whoopee-doo for you. Damn
I
your eyes.
grabbed my book and I said, "That's on. We're on."
So check out Blowout. Good times had by all. So thank you very much and be well.
Be well, people. Don't be a dick.